Hey guys, I'd like to welcome you to the Kortex Media Podcast, where we navigate the fast-paced world of automotive and more. I'm your host, Corsten Schmidt. Here today, I have Alan Campbell joining us from Fahrt Systems. Alan is an innovative leader in the overland and outdoor adventure industry, serving as the owner of Fahrt Systems in Calgary, Canada. With a strong background in sales, business development, and management across energy and geotechnical sectors, Alan founded Fahrt Systems in 2020 to bring high-quality, custom interior solutions to overlanding enthusiasts. Under his leadership, the company has earned a reputation for exceptional craftsmanship, customer-focused design, and robust in-house manufacturing. Alan's passion for adventure and commitment to innovation continues to drive Fahrt Systems' growth and influence the Canadian outdoor vehicle market. It's great to have you on, Alan.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Corson.
No worries. So I kind of touched on your background, but let's first start talking about your background. Can you share a bit about your journey before founding your company and what kind of inspired you to enter the overlanding industry?
Sure. I guess, so I'm originally a Saskatchewan boy, Flatlander hockey player, rural kid. And, so I spent a lot of time outdoors as a kid, right? It was always my happy place. Back in, I guess it was 1987, I actually moved to Calgary and, became more entrenched in the oil and gas industry here. And it became my career. So I spent, I guess, almost 30 years in the oil and gas industry, both in upstream and midstream. Various roles, starting out as just a schmo, I guess you could say, and grew up into the industry and became a general manager of a billion dollar company, Swiss-based company, and then moved over into a more North American-centric company. And finally, just one day, sitting in my office in downtown Calgary, one of my office windows faced west, and I was looking out at the mountains, and I just realized, and it sometimes, Corson, it takes a long time to realize what your, I guess, calling in life is, or what should you be doing.
Yep.
And I was looking at the mountains, and I thought, you know what? I just can't work in an aquarium anymore. The meeting after meeting after meeting, and don't get me wrong, I learned many valuable things from the industry, and I have no qualms against it. I have nothing but praise for it. But that being said, I was always a more hands-on person. So I've always had, a lot of hobbies, and woodworking has always been the consistent one through my whole life. Even as a child, my dad was a very accomplished woodworker. So, it kind of came part and parcel for me. So I came home from work that day, and my wife and I were talking, and it's just like we could see the writing on the wall. We knew that the midstream market in Canada was definitely going to hit it was in a bit of a rut. Yeah. And, even the company I was working for, they were in the process of divesting all of their oil and gas assets and moving towards EV production, if you will, or the cable and wiring harnesses for EVs. So my wife kind of said, well, what do you want to do? Right. And that's where it kind of hit me. And she was actually the one. I'm a low risk guy. She loves to take risks. I'm an engineer by education, so I tend to be very analytical and assess risks before going both feet in. And so we hummed and hawed and so on and so forth. And I had some time off, so I decided, well, I need to do a rear seat delete for our truck. Because at the time we had 3 dogs that totaled 400 pounds. I mean, they're massive dogs, right? So we needed a rear seat delete to, bring the dogs with us when we were camping.
Yeah.
And I put a post up on a social media page, and it had amazing feedback. And Joanne, my wife, just basically said, "Well, I think we've just answered our own question." And I, of course, thought she was out of her mind. that's we're the only company in North America that would really be doing this. So I mean, that to me is we didn't have any data to run with. So, and me without data is not a happy Alan. So, but we took the plunge. We decided, you know what, let's she was ex oil and gas as well. So we went into it head first, and we started designing, rear seat delete systems. And then we, of course, got into more drawer systems, camping systems, overland systems. And the business is just growing from there. So I think we're well over 125 different vehicles we've built out now. We've had customers come here from as far as Tennessee, Montreal, half a dozen from California, all over the northwestern U.S. So it's definitely we found our niche market.
That's awesome.
That's how we ended up where we are.
That's super exciting. It's quite the journey that you went down as well, from both of you guys working in the gas industry to finding your passion, that especially something that ran in the family, because you said your father was a big woodworker as well. So it's nice that you can continue that journey. And no, that's amazing. So just so the audience can get a little bit of context on what you do, can you kind of explain what you do and who you serve?
Sure. So basically, the overland industry as a whole, it initially started in South Africa and Australia about 35 years ago, where, these guys were doing these big treks in their vehicles through the Australian outback, or, through these African desert areas. Yeah. And so they were kind of they're the OGs of the entire industry. And large companies like Alucab out of South Africa, they're a big publicly traded company now. I think they have, half a dozen manufacturing locations. So they were really the original guys that started this. So it's kind of started to move into Canada, really in about 2018, 2019, there started to be a little bit of traction with it, but it was still kind of like an outlier industry in the automotive industry. So there wasn't a lot of data, right? Yeah. If you wanted to start a business, any business, whatever it is, maybe you're, a tape measure company, you need data to formulate a business plan. Mm-hmm. So this is where the overland industry, being so new to Canada, so new to North America in general, there wasn't any of that data available. So I delved more into the data from the automotive industry alone to try and look at, looking at EV sales versus ICE sales, small cars versus trucks versus vans, what's selling, where's the industry going? Mm-hmm. And when COVID hit, campgrounds were closed. People couldn't go and visit their loved ones, blah, blah, blah. So people started to camp in more remote regions, right? So they would take their, completely bone stock Toyota Tacoma and hook it up to a little, 14-foot RV and try and pull it through these mountainous trails. And they'd find when they get there that their RV was nothing but a pile of rubbish, right? Because the trails would beat it up. Their truck was getting stuck. So realistically, what happened is people started to understand that, to reach these more secluded, remote locations, and also how to, to navigate these trails, which can be extremely difficult at times. So you have, need winches and things like that to get through. People started to discover that, my stock Tacoma isn't going to work. And then they also found out that you have to carry more gear for this type of camping, if you will. So it includes recovery straps, like I said, winches, shovels, all this other stuff you have to carry. Those, okay, well, we need somewhere to put it. So what we did is we said, okay, look, I am not the kind of person that is patient when setting up a camp, right? I get there and I like things to be precise, and I like things to be very organized and planned out, setting up the tent, everything's where I need it. And I found that camping out of totes absolutely made my right eye twitch. The lack of organization. So, and just to digress for 1 second, but my dad was a highly organized person. He was actually a pilot in the Royal Canadian Navy.
Oh, wow.
Back when they still had aircraft carriers. Yeah. So he was flying the submarine hunter killers off the coast of Eastern Canada during the Cold War. So he was tracking Russian subs. So he was obviously, my dad was a very precise guy and a very organized guy. So that's where I got that from. So we started to develop these modular systems go into the back of these trucks to make this camping overlanding more organized, more convenient, because with overlanding versus camping, we have to understand that there's a fairly large gap between the two. Yeah. Camping is getting to a spot and spending 3 or 4 days there or a week there and not moving. Whereas overlanding is driving for the day on these trails, going all the way from Alberta into British Columbia on back roads and trails and forestry roads. And you camp in a different spot every night. So you want something quick to set up, quick to tear down, get back on the trail, and continue on your journey.
Away you go.
Yeah, so that's kind of why we ended up with these highly organized, systems that we build now. So what's unique about us and how we got our start? So there are other companies that build interior systems, but they're more, you buy what they make. So they make boxes, and you have to buy their boxes in that size. And yes, they'll fit. They're built specifically for each vehicle, but you can't customize them. And I started thinking, well, not everybody is 6 feet tall. Some people are going to be 5'2", some people are going to be 6'5", and you start to think about, some people have kids, some people don't have kids, some people take their dogs. So you need, in this day and age, people want options. They want flexibility. They want unique, or not unique, but tailored systems, right? I think we're gone from the society of totes are acceptable for camping. We've gone to this thing that no, it needs to be organized. And so we started building the actual canopy camper interiors about 2 years ago, and I think we've done probably about 50 of them so far.
Wow!
So it's awesome. It's a good business now. Don't get me wrong, Corson, there are a ton of struggle. You can't take a Jeep Gladiator box build and make it fit into a Toyota Tacoma, which you can't fit into a Nissan Frontier, which, you can't fit into a Chevy Colorado. They're all, every box design is completely different. And when they do a generation revision, you start all over at ground zero again, redesigning how everything's going to fit. So the challenge when we started was finding the vehicle to actually build these out. So customer would say, "Hey, have you built anything for a 2021 GMC Sierra 1500, 6.5 foot box?" Well, no, we haven't. So you're going to be the first. Yeah. So that was the challenge in selling that concept to the customer, to put their trust in us, to let us build their vehicle out for them. Oftentimes sight unseen course. And I mean, we won't even see a vehicle until it's installation day. Wow, so there's a lot of
tough.
It's tough. Yeah. I mean, I'll get the basic measurements down and you learn over time to what works, what doesn't work, how to get your clearances right. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very, you look at it, we probably have about 30 or 40 different types of base plate designs alone, right? That's depending on the make, model, and year of the vehicle. Yeah. So it's not for the weak of heart. Definitely. It's there's a lot of information that needs to be gathered hands-on through experience, because that data is just not available.
Sure.
So
for sure.
Those are some of the challenges. Yeah, that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, that would be tough. Like, And what
Yeah.
are the vehicles that you're seeing the most often? Are you seeing trucks? Are you seeing vans? Are you seeing more of like a Jeep SUV type idea?
Um, Mostly trucks,
Mostly
and
trucks.
and I would say well over half of those trucks are usually the mid-size trucks.
Yeah.
And of the mid-size trucks, it's the number one is the Tacoma. There's no
Tacoma, yeah.
question. And no, the reason for that is just reliability.
They're a great
I'm
truck.
not, yeah, I'm not knocking other brands of trucks. I mean, the Frontier is a good truck. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, but just the support from Toyota, and their vast years of experience in the off-road. I mean, you see Toyota Hiluxes with 600,000 kilometers on them, and they're still running.
Yeah.
And so we see primarily Toyotas, but I mean that's probably 55 to 60% of our business is Toyota,
Yeah.
and the rest is kind of broken up with a lot of GM vehicles we're starting to see. I think the big thing is you look at companies like General Motors and Ford, we'll just and Stellantis, if you will.
Yeah.
You can see them really focusing. So they're a lot of them are pulling back from the EV market. They're not investing as much in there. But what do you see them coming out with? Well, you see them coming out with more trail rated vehicles right from the factory now. So
Yeah.
you can look at the new Toyota Tacoma Trail Hunter, which is, overland ready. It's not really overland ready, but I mean, it's a good starter package. You look at the Jeep, with the Rubicon. You look at Chevy with came out with the AEV Bison truck, which is, of course, a lot of aftermarket parts on it. And Ford coming up with the Tremor lineup.
The Tremor, yeah.
So you see that all these automotive manufacturers are really moving towards more trail rated vehicles.
Yeah.
So that's realistically when they're focusing, and I'm not against EVs. Don't get me wrong. I 100% think there's a spot for them in our
Sure.
industry. But the reality is, when you see companies pulling back from the EV market and focusing on internal combustion vehicles that have been in some ways very misrepresented in the industry, I guess you could say, for their pollution output and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But they're still focusing on them. So companies, large publicly traded companies, would not put major investment towards that if they did not see a future for those type of vehicles. So that's really, those are a lot of the outlying factors that we looked at in starting this business, right? So that's, to kind of come full circle on that. So that's kind of where we came to it, that, this is a sustainable industry, the outdoor adventure. So it's not just the overlanders. It's the people that, go out and do a lot of remote trail hiking, paddleboarding, kayaking, canoeing, mountain biking, skiing.
The outdoor adventure people who want to get back in touch with nature. And I think COVID was a huge impact on that, because people wanted to get back out in touch with nature, and that was kind of the only thing you could do then, right? Like you couldn't go see anyone or go anywhere, so you got back in touch with nature. And it's nice that that's the direction that we're turning again. It's kind of getting people back in touch with that side of our lives.
Yeah, and it comes with its challenges as well. I mean, you find that maybe 5 years ago you were the only person on the trail, and now you're in a lineup of vehicles. Like it's like a Tim Hortons lineup, right?
Yeah.
But so I mean, there's definitely, there's a lot of challenges in the industry working with governments to open more trails. Right. So there will always be opposing views. But I think, the overland industry as a whole here in Canada, we have a group here in Alberta called Trails for Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They're a nonprofit group. They actually go out and do trail maintenance. They get rid of the rutting and the pooling and making sure the runoff is going in the right direction, putting up fencing, literally like steel pole fencing to keep people away from protected waters, because some people just don't know, right?
Yeah.
When you're a new industry, they'll be like, oh, look, a lake. And they'll drive their truck right up to the lake shore and then turn it around and open up the back of the truck and sit there and veg out and watch the lake. Well, you can't be there.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of people, companies or groups like this Trails for Tomorrow that are educating people on responsible outdoor adventure, right? So,
That's awesome.
And that's really, to be honest with you, we can look at the off-road industry and the overland industry, and some people kind of lump them in the same group, but they're actually quite different. The overlanders tend to be a little bit more conscious of the sustainability of the trails.
Yeah.
They're not out there with 44-inch tires and 700 horsepower ripping it up. They're tread safely. Tread lightly is the approach they take. So that's realistically where this whole industry. So it's been welcomed, and I think that's imperative to mention, Corson, is because the big thing is we don't want the overland industry to be misaligned, right? We don't want to be grouped in with people that are just out there to have fun.
For sure.
And don't care about the consequences, like leaving, messy campsites and campfires burning that start forest fires. I mean, here we are right now, right, with fires raging throughout Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, and many of them they're saying are human caused.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is where we try to look at this environmental responsibility, and that's really where the overlanding plays a big role in that with companies like Trails for Tomorrow.
For sure. No, it's nice to actually have people like you said, the off-roaders. They're not there to get to a destination. They're there to rip through the trail, get to the next trail, and keep ripping through the trails. Where, like you said, the overlanders, they're there to get to a nice destination, sit, relax, enjoy the wilderness, enjoy the outdoors, and get back in touch with nature.
Oftentimes they have a couple dogs and kids with them and the wife and that kind of thing, right? So I mean, it's more of a family affair type of thing.
Yeah,
so
and it's a great industry, and it'd be nice to open up more trails to get more opportunity to go see new places, because there's only so many trails and kind of back roads these days now. So that would be a good opportunity.
You're in Ontario, correct?
I'm in Ontario, yeah.
Yeah, so if you look up around like the Bob Cajun area, Pigeon Lake, things up there, Peterborough, there's some amazing land up there that's really not open as far as trails, right? I mean, there's lots for snowmobilers and quads and those kind of things, but so I mean, there's companies in Ontario that have sprung up that are getting into the overland industry, like Red Bear Outdoors in Toronto. He's really had some good growth. So I think, Alberta has always been kind of known for its trail systems and things. Now, don't get me wrong, about half of the trails out here have been shut down due to irresponsible use, those kind of things. So this is where we're trying to open them up again. Yeah. but that in Ontario, it's, there wasn't really much for overlanding out there.
No.
And I think you're going to see that people are going to start to work with, the Ford government, those kind of things, on opening up more trail systems. You get in through northern Quebec, New Brunswick, there's some amazing, amazing places to see up there, right? Yeah. And these are not places where you just hike to, right? I mean, these are 400 or 500 kilometer journeys. They're not just go out for the day. So I think, that's going to be something that the industry in Canada is, the West is quite well established. Look at BC and Alberta. We've been doing it out here for a long time. It's taking off down there now, but it's a really growing industry. And I think even if you went to the car dealerships, and you went to a Toyota dealership or you went to whatever, you'll find that they're going to have almost an equal balance of cars and trucks now.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas it used to be 25% trucks, 75% cars.
Yeah.
So that's showing that, I guess with the advent of a commonplace 4-door truck versus, the granddad's old regular cab truck with an 8-foot box, trucks have become more family oriented, right?
Sure.
You can put 2 child seats in the back seat and do the same thing that you can do with a car.
Yeah.
So I think you're seeing it in Ontario now. I mean, we see a very active market down there. It's growing. So
yeah. No, it's and you see a lot more medium-sized trucks around. Like it used to be kind of more 2010s. You'd see a lot more of the bigger diesels or the F-150s, but now you're starting to see more of those Rangers. You're starting to see more of the Tacomas. You're starting to see more of the smaller trucks around, and it's kind of crazy to see that with how big everything has gotten, like as in trailers and whatnot. But I think people are starting to realize I don't need a 30-foot camping trailer. I can just use a Tacoma and just sleep in the back. So
right. I mean, I look at my son. He's 21 and he has a FJ Cruiser. And he and his girlfriend, they just bought an off-road trailer. So it's a Canadian company called Beaverbuilt that's built out here in Alberta. And you look at these trailers, I mean, they're not a trailer you sleep inside. You still have to put a tent on the top of the trailer box.
Yeah.
But you look at these trailers, the trailer alone, just a bare bones non-option trailer, they start at $20,000. And you think $20,000 for something that looks kind of like a utility trailer until you look underneath and you understand it's a coil spring, dual shock, independent suspension system with a fully articulating hitch and they're built so rugged and robust. And it was my son's birthday yesterday, and that's how he spends his birthday. He's a week out in the bush with his girlfriend out camping remotely.
That's awesome.
Right. And that's really, you see people that's how they want to spend their time now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just, I think I'm hoping that's the way that the world gets pushed because a lot of people are getting stuck inside, especially in big cities. They're getting stuck, not being able to get in touch with nature, where if they have these other options, instead of just camping, instead of just off-roading, they have these other options that are cheaper and easier to get in touch with nature and whatnot. And
I not to correct you on anything, but when you say cheaper, that's the one thing that I'll say about this overlanding is it's quite the rabbit hole.
For sure.
And people need to understand that, safety is the number one thing you want, especially if you are venturing out as a single vehicle. You might have 2 or 3 people with you, but if you're going out as a single vehicle, it's not a cheap endeavor because you have to be able to self-recovery. There's a lot of knowledge you need. Yeah. I highly recommend, if people aren't experienced in it, that they actually take a training course on how to, navigate going through a trench. How do you do that without, jamming your front bumper on the other side or catching your back bumper on the backside when you're going through? How do you navigate? Yeah. And how do you, if you do get hung up or you do get stuck, how do you use your recovery gear, right? How do you self-recover? Yeah, because you look at something with like our truck is a Tundra, and the winch on it is a 12,000-pound winch. And realistically, if you're doing a double pull, which is using something called a snatch block, you're 24,000 pounds of force on a cable. Yeah. And if that thing snaps, it's cutting you in half. Yeah. Right. And I've seen videos of new people in the industry where they're trying to winch themselves out, and their kids are playing around a tight winch line and things. It's like, oh no. Right. So it's the kind of, when you say it's, a more cost effective way to do it, it is once you spend the initial money. There's a lot of sticker shock when you first start. I mean, you look at buying a good quality camper canopy.
Yeah.
You're looking at $25,000 by the time you're all said and done. Then you put an interior system in it. Then you have to say, oh, well, now I need heavy duty leaf springs or coil springs. I need new suspension. I need new control arms. And now I need a built-in compressor. Now I need, because I have to air up and air down my tires, right?
Yeah.
So it gets quite expensive to do it safely. You can do it on a budget, but you have to be very cognizant that if you do get into a sketchy situation, it may not bode well, right? So safety costs money.
No, that's the great. Big thing. Do you have any specific programs or online courses that people can take if they were looking to get into it that you can recommend?
Yes, absolutely. There's actually, it's not really an online course, but I'm not sure if he's going to start doing those, but there's a fellow in northern BC called ARC, A-R-C, Off-Road Training, and he does a lot of training for oil and gas companies and solar companies and those kind of things that have to access these remote locations, how to use four-wheel drive properly, how to do recoveries. So, yeah, ARC Off-Road Training is absolutely, in fact, he's probably a guy, Corson, that would be worthwhile for you to actually have on your show.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, Chad Artemichuk is the owner's name. He's a great guy, very knowledgeable, understands the risks, and he puts on a lot of training courses, a lot.
Okay.
So
that's awesome.
It's something to look into. Yeah.
So I'll drop a link in the description so everyone can find know where to find him, and I'll reach out to him as well to see if he wants to come on the podcast. That'd be awesome.
Sure.
So I have one question for you. Who was your biggest role model in your entrepreneurial journey?
Brian, who is the owner of Goose Gear. So Goose Gear is our biggest competitor.
Yeah.
And I have nothing but good things to say about Brian. Although we don't talk personally, he has been an innovator in this industry, in the interior industry. We use, some different design concepts. We use different materials and those kind of things because I don't believe in plagiarism. I think it sucks.
Yeah.
I think some people say, well, it's a compliment. Well, no, it's not. It's actually just being lazy, right? So no, I have a lot of respect for Brian. He was kind of the initiator of, rear seat deletes and overland systems for vehicles here in North America. He started out as a cabinet builder. He owned a big cabinet shop and eventually turned it into doing overland product. And he makes a really nice product. He does. So he's kind of one of my mentors. And another fella that I would really say has had an impact on me as far as helping me designing and through thought processes is Vil van der Merwe. And he's one of the owners of Crave Automotive here in Calgary, which is probably the quintessential best off-road shop in Canada, bar none. I mean, the work that they do there is phenomenal. In fact, they're even doing Arctic trucks now, the ones with the big inflatable, the tires on them. And so they're actually doing those. They have a deal with Arctic trucks now. So that speaks to their quality and their workmanship that they do there. So Vil has been he's a young guy. He's not like he's, doesn't have this crap on his face or anything like that. But he's originally from South Africa, and his dad was very big in the overlanding industry in South Africa. So when they emigrated to Canada, Vil inherited and brought with him a lot of that knowledge base. So as one of the owners of Crave Automotive, Vil has been really instrumental. I mean, I've done 3 builds for Vil now.
Yeah.
And if there's one person that you want to get to test the reliability or ruggedness of your builds, it's Vil. Because if Vil can't break it, nobody can break it. He builds his trucks. They're very serious builds. In fact, his 2024 Tundra that he has now, I mean, that would be an ideal truck for you to see a video walkthrough on what one of the Crave Automotive trucks that are built out look like, how they're finished, like what the suspension actually looks like. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but it really gives you the concept of what a properly built overlanding vehicle looks like. And you know what's crazy? He could put himself, his wife, his dog, and their 2 young boys in the truck, and they can head off into the middle of Moab and do all these really tough trails, but they can take his kids. So he has two young boys, and these kids are growing up with this outdoors mentality.
That's awesome.
So Bill's able to foster that at a very early age. And that's why I have it, is because, we had a cottage, and that's where I spent all my, my summertime would be out playing in the woods. Right. So building forts and actually, doing bushcraft as a kid. And that's what Bill's teaching his kids now. So
that's awesome.
He would actually be another good person for you to talk with, Corson. He's kind of one of the Mac daddies for this industry in Canada.
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk after the podcast and see if I can get some information for him. So, no, that's super cool, and it's nice that you're in contact with a lot of the leaders in the industry. You guys are working together as a team to kind of figure out your own. You're helping each other, but figuring out your own way throughout the industry as well. So that's really nice to work with professionals in the industry.
Yeah, and what's nice, Corson, too, is we're Canadian. I mean, I'm not against. I import a lot of product to the U.S. I have a lot of U.S. customers. I don't. This whole tariff thing, it just does my head in. I don't really care. It is what it is. We'll just carry on, right?
Exactly.
And someday everybody will get along, and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But when I really look at this, I try to say, okay, well, where does Canada sit? We a lot of people that build the trucks, they're importing products from other countries to build them. So there's very few Canadian manufacturing companies. We're one. Then there's another company out of Lacombe, Alberta here called Blind Man Overland, and they're in the Blind Man River Valley, hence the name. But he's actually manufacturing his own canopy campers that are incredibly stout. I mean, those things are built to the nines. Yeah. Actually, I think he's been on Dragon's Den as well.
That's super cool.
Yeah, so Dave Dion is the owner of Blind Man Overland, which would be, again, something else we can talk about after the podcast. But yeah.
That's awesome. We'll jump into industry trends because we haven't really we kind of touched on it. But what are the major trends that you're seeing in the overlanding and outdoor adventure space right now?
I think we're starting to see more and more trucks being built by the manufacturers that are, again, I'm going to use my fingers near here, overland ready. Like the Toyota has the TRD off-road, and it's not really, it's just got different shocks on it, right?
Yeah.
And chrome bumpers instead of painted. But that, you see like the Trail Hunter, it comes now with, shocks that are, completely different valving, reservoirs on them. They have, longer travel systems. They can carry a larger tire, different gear ratios. So these things are coming more adventure ready, so to speak. So I think the trend in the industry is going towards how to fit as much stuff into a Tacoma or a Frontier or a Ranger as possible. So the trend is now really, I'm going to speak more centric towards my what we do is how can you take a 5-foot Tacoma box truck and make it so you can have 2 adults and 2 kids have a meal inside the back of the Tacoma if the weather is absolute crap.
Yeah.
So that's what we specialize in. So we can actually take a 5-foot Toyota Tacoma. Mom and dad sleep up top in the tent area. Our seating storage area converts into a secondary sleeping area below where the kids can sleep and the dog or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's really where it's going, is where it used to be more of a, husband and wife or a person my age where they're empty nesters, that kind of thing, that, they had the money to build the truck. That was the overland industry. Now you're seeing a lot of these people, so many people with kids like Bill, that get out there and do this kind of thing, but they need to have a place that's warm, dry, and safe. Because obviously, it being in bear country, it's and we just don't have black bears to deal with here. We have grizzlies, we have mountain lions, we have all kinds of crap.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing with these canopy campers is if you're in a very bad climatic situation, i.e., dumping snow like crazy, high winds, whatever it could be. Basically, with the tent up, it becomes a giant sail. So with our system, you can actually close everything down, and you can still get into the back of the truck and be safe and sleep with the tent down, right?
Yeah.
So you're in a fully enclosed steel and aluminum housing at that point. So it's. I think the trend in the industry is going from, we look at what the South Africans do, and theirs is a very militaristic approach to overlanding. Yeah. I mean, their stuff is made out of steel, and it's, heavy, and it's, these guys just build stuff bomb-proof. But they got to understand, too, they're going out there for, 2 or 3 months at a time, right?
Yeah.
Where most people here, I would say 95% or more, they're going out for a week and a half at the most, or a week, right? Yeah. And they're not going through, rivers. They're not, they don't need these fully waterproofed engines and everything else where they can, cross up to windshield depth like they do in South Africa and Australia. So I think the trend is going towards, the overlanding here. People here want to be comfortable, right? They want to be comfortable at the end of the day. And I think you're seeing a lot more people with Starlink being available now. And back to the COVID, a lot of people still have a work from home program where, 3 days in the office, 2 days work from home. We have quite a few of our customers. Actually, we had a CEO from Ontario, from Mississauga, that we did a system for him. He spent 2 years on the road working from his truck via Starlink, and with his wife and their baby touring all across Canada and North America. That's right, because they wanted to do it when their kid was very young, to get them out there. So, with Starlink, that brings in a different mentality as well. And we have a lot of our customers that they work in the office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and literally Wednesday after work, their truck is loaded at work, and they just head for the mountains. And they work for Thursday and Friday. They're working from the back of their truck in the middle of nowhere via Starlink. They're going to their Zoom meetings and what have you.
Yeah.
And, but as soon as their workday is over, they go hiking, they go fishing, they go canoeing or kayaking, or they're doing whatever they want to do for their recreational activity, hunting. And so you'll find that people are starting to understand that, the connectivity is available. But personally, when I go out, that's the last thing I want. I want to go out there for the peace and quiet. I don't want to see 5 bars on my cell phone. I want to see 0, right? So otherwise, I know I'll just be answering phone calls and making phone calls, and I'll still be working.
Sure. But it's nice that we now have that option with people that are working remotely to that they can have the option, instead of sitting in an office all day, they can go out, they can adventure, they can get out in the nature, do their work, and then they're boom, right? Say they're parked near a lake, they can go fishing, they can go kayaking, they can do whatever. So it's nice that people have that option these days. Like, so my girlfriend's brother, they went and bought a van. It was a Mercedes Sprinter van that was converted into a camper, basically. And the family they bought it off of traveled all South and Central America with this van, and like it was the real deal, and it was pretty cool. But like they run an online marketing, a digital marketing agency, so they are able to work out of the van while they're traveling and doing their thing. So it's nice to have that option if that's what you're into and that's what you want to do.
Oh, absolutely. And then that's the beauty of it, right? I mean, you're never really truly disconnected anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So you can actually spend that time in the outdoors doing what you love and still generating revenue.
Yeah.
Right. That's the key metric.
It's really cool. What aspects of your work have been kind of really successful? Like, have you guys, obviously you focus on more the Tacoma side of things. Have you guys done a bunch of marketing campaigns that have really helped you guys out, getting you more sales? Like what's kind of been really successful in your upcoming and your business, and what have you guys been more focusing on lately?
Well, it's funny. When we talk about marketing, the only place that we market is on Instagram. That's it. That's it. We don't run massive ad campaigns in magazines or online publications. We have never been to an overland show or rally.
Yeah.
So you look at the big one just happened in Arizona a couple of weeks ago, Expo West.
Yeah.
Which has, I mean, I don't know how many people go to that, but it's probably 150,000 people attend that show. So we've never done that. But oddly enough, we're in a lot of the shows in clients' vehicles that are showing off other products, right? So we've relied more on word of mouth.
Yeah.
That's the way we wanted to do this because we let our quality speak for itself. That's what we focus on. So it's not just our quality. I mean, our plywood all comes in directly from Finland. We don't mess around with that stuff. Even the upholstery that we use is rated as for parking armored personnel carriers and tracked vehicles on in the mud for the U.S. military. So It's basically indestructible. It's waterproof, and it only weighs 7 grams per square foot. So, it's so that's that's kind of we spent a lot of time doing product research and development that we knew could stand the test of people like Vil, for an example, right? That are going to actually use these for their intended purpose. And that means using them hard. And, so our claim to fame, really is that number one, we build an extremely robust system, but with each client, so out of all the builds we've done, other than seat deletes for canopy campers, we've never done one the same.
Yeah.
Every build is unique. So I think that's really where we come in, is that we're not just a big box store. We'll actually work with the client. And with my background, in work, my previous career, I spend a lot of time talking with them about, the safety aspect of it, load balancing. If you look at a Toyota, a third gen Tacoma or a second gen Tundra, you have the starter battery, you have the driver and the fuel tank all on the driver's side.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, well, we don't want to put any more weight over there. We want to start, biasing the weight towards the passenger side, get it in front of the wheel well. So that's where your water system and your battery, your house battery, your charging system, we'll focus on putting that all up there. So we take what I would call as a consultative approach to the customers. Yeah. And we spend a lot of time educating the customer as to how to build it safely. I mean, what you may want as a build may not be a safe build. Yeah. So we say, okay, well, let's marry the two together so that we find a safe build that still meets your requirements. And like I say, the one fellow we had from Ontario there, he was 6'5" or 6'4", and his wife was 5'2", and they had a baby. So how do you design a system that they needed a secure place to strap in their stroller in the back of the truck? So I have a special cabinet that the stroller could go in, because if they get in a really bumpy trail where the truck is all over, you don't want stuff flying all over inside the back of your truck, right?
No, obviously. Not at all.
So, so that we worked with this couple to say, okay, well, he can get up into the upper sleeping area in the alucab.
Yeah.
But she can't by standing on the cabinets, right? It's still too tall for her. So we customized it. We built one cabinet taller than everything else, so she could actually step on a lower cabinet, the upper cabinet, and get up into the sleeping area, no problem.
That's
cool.
That's
where we differentiate ourselves. That will actually, every single customer has their unique challenges, and that's where we shine. Is that we spend sometime hours and hours with our clients before we even put an estimate together for them.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're getting everything's going to work out properly, and that's
exactly.
Awesome. You guys are the custom side of Overland interiors. That's
correct.
That's where a lot of people would just be like a plug and play type thing, where you're more of a let's build exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah, it's a knockdown kit. You order it off the internet. It comes to your door. You put it together and you bolt it in your truck, right?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, they do have options for them, but it's still, you need something unique because their cabinet's 23 inches long. Well, I need a cabinet 24 inches long. Well, they don't have that. Okay, well, that's where we come in, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
So
that's really cool.
The more unique applications and even weird vehicles. Like we built out a Honda Element.
Really?
Yeah, to the point where the fella's 6'1", he can sleep fully extended in his Honda Element on top of his camp kitchen tunnel. He's got room for his Roughland dog kennel. He has a Belgian Malinois that goes everywhere with him.
Yeah.
And so he's got his dog kennel in there. He has his 12-volt fridge freezer in there. He has a fully deployable camp kitchen with a camp stove, and he can sleep in there. He puts the passenger seat forward. We built a flip-up extension. Yeah, and this is in a Honda Element of all.
That is so funny.
Yeah. We've done everything from a Honda Element to a 170-inch wheelbase Sprinter van. So
that's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I was saying, that anybody that wants to get into this industry, trust me, it's learning about all the different vehicles, all the different platforms, and how to safely mount these so that in the event of a rollover, you're not going to have cabinets flying around inside an SUV, because the last time I checked, that might be a bad idea.
It might be.
Yeah. So you have to really look at even how your anchoring system. We use all the factory anchoring systems for a base plate, and our cabinets are bolted with 14,000 Newton rated pull-out force anchors, so that these things are in there. Yeah, and the thing is, you don't want your cabinetry in the back of the truck because you have to go to Home Depot and pick up a lift of fence boards. It takes about 20 minutes to take all the cabinets out of the back. The base plate remains in. Throw your fence boards in, unload them, put your cabinets back in. So it's not a permanent thing.
That's handy. That's super handy. This is more towards the goals side of the business. Where do you guys want to be in the next 6 to 12 months? Like, do you guys have plans to grow as a business? Because you said it's only you two at the moment. Do you guys have plans to grow? What's kind of your goals?
Yeah, I mean, yes, obviously growth is always, but we like sustained growth.
Yeah.
We don't like, so we're completely greenfield. We're completely bootstrapped, zero outside investment, none whatsoever. We don't owe anybody anything. That's the beauty of our business, right? Yeah. So, all of our tooling and everything is all paid for. So, we're not carrying any debt for a $1 million CNC system and all this other crap. So,
yeah.
As far as our business growing, we have to really look at 6 to 12 months near term. It's just status quo, and we're just growing. We're growing year over year anyway, right? Yeah. That's just fact of the matter. And yeah, we definitely do have a plan that we're going to hit critical mass where we have to hire, right? Yeah. Do we need a bigger shop? Do we need a bigger CNC system? Do we need this? But I look more at the business as from a sustainability perspective, and it's not just the next 6 to 12 months that's important for me. It's the next 5 to 10 years, because I'm not a spring chicken, right? I'm not 25 years old, and I can still work 70, 80 hours a week in the shop, and it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Just, I guess that's the way I grew up, but realistically, the what the business to do is we build it up to a point where it's either saleable or acquisition based, that kind of a thing, or potentially if our son wants to leave his career and come on board, he'd be a hire that we would do.
He's got a good mentor. He's got a good mentor to learn from.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, Dad can be a bit of a hard ass sometimes.
That's funny.
I learned from my hard ass dad. So.
Hey, it's the best person to learn from.
Yeah,
There's,
yeah, exactly, right. And hey, I still have 2 thumbs and 8 fingers,
yeah,
so that's a good
exactly.
sign.
We got a couple more questions here for you. If you could go back to when you started Fahrt, what advice would you give yourself?
Um, what advice would I give myself if I could go back to when this first started?
Yeah. It wasn't that long ago, so it's a tough
No,
question.
honestly, I would say I really honestly I don't think I would do anything different. I don't think
That's,
I think I don't say we were lucky,
yeah,
but my wife and I are a very good balance. She being the risk taker, me being very anti-risk.
yeah,
We struck that good balance, and we were able to bounce things off each other and forge ahead. I think maybe if I do look back and say what could I do differently, I probably would have invested into a CNC machine earlier on.
yeah,
Right. So it was already quite busy when we bought a CNC machine. So I had to step back from doing things in a regular process and learn how to use a CNC.
yeah.
Even though I understand automation and control systems very, very well, it's still a learning curve. You have to learn, the different bits, different cut speeds. So I would say that, that's something that if somebody, if I had to do it all over again, I would have started with a CNC. That's where I would have
For
started.
sure, for sure. Yeah, they're great machines. Like I remember using them in high school. Unreal what they can do, especially this day and age, and how easy, not easy, but easy it is to actually write the code, and the designs you can make are pretty simple with the programs they now offer with
Mm-hmm.
CAD and everything else. So
Yeah. 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 And I mean, I had a lot of experience with AutoCAD, with Autodesk and that kind of thing. And, at the end of the day, it was fairly easy for me. Like I
yeah,
say, it was easy for me to pick up CNC. It wasn't an issue at all, but it was just something I wish I would have started in the beginning because I'm very, very, very fussy on the accuracy of the work.
yeah,
It has to be absolutely perfect. It's just otherwise my right eye is going to twitch out of control, right? So that's kind of where I mean this is kind of working on this build here right now. You can see
yeah.
just the venting and all these
That's
different
super
things that
cool.
we do put in to
Yeah,
make these things work like that. So that's the biggest thing with the CNC is it's such a time saver. I was
yeah,
still getting the same quality doing it conventionally, but it was just so time consuming, right?
yeah.
So I initially would take us 2 days to do a custom, or 2 weeks to do a custom build. Now I can literally turn one out in 3 days, 3 to 4 days. It's
Nice.
that from raw materials to a completely ready to install system.
That's cool.
So yeah.
That's awesome. So this next question is kind of similar, but looking back on your journey in the overland space, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned, and what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs entering the space in the next couple of years or right now?
Um, if you're going to start something in the overland industry, ensure that you're going to not go after a targeted price market. Build quality because you will be sussed out very quickly in this industry. If you make a poor product, your reputation will be gone in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
This industry is extremely fickle. Okay. These are not easy to please customers. Okay. They expect, if they're going to spend $8,000 on their suspension system for their truck, it better work properly.
Yeah.
If they're going to spend thousands of dollars on an interior system, it better work properly. It better be safe. It better be durable, right? That because there's been a lot of companies start up and they fail within the first 2 years because of quality issues, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing I would say is scale your business accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Do not go into this thing expecting to be a millionaire in the first 2 years. You need to go at this. Don't go into scads and scads of debt buying, metalworking equipment like brakes and shears and CNC benders and all this other stuff. Don't go for broke. Yeah. Cut your teeth in the industry by doing things more, I'm going to call it the old school way, more of a hands-on building things approach. Do it that way first, because that way you tend to understand your product a lot better. But really go at it slowly. Mm-hmm. Go at it slowly. Do it properly. Make the right investments at the right time into the right equipment as you grow. Don't spend $150,000 on equipment and start out with astronomical debt that you have to pay down while you're still trying to generate a profit to live off of, right? Yeah. If that's the intent of your business, is to be your sole income. So I'd say, walk softly and carry a big stick, but make sure that you build quality. People will pay the price for a quality item. You're still going to see your rooftop tents come in from China. I see people buying camper canopies off Alibaba and rebranding them to their own brand to it's a Canadian product.
Yeah.
I've seen these firsthand. I cut my hand on one because the metal wasn't finished properly. I've seen gaps where there's so much water ingress. If you're driving 60 miles an hour down the highway in the rain, you're literally, the back of your truck will be full of water. So build a quality product and people will remember you.
Yeah.
Build an inferior product and people will forget you very quick.
Yeah.
You'll be gone by the wayside, because price plays a factor. Do I spend, $10,000 on a canopy, or do I spend $25,000 on a canopy? You're going to have both of those in the industry.
Yeah.
Right. But the $10,000 canopy people, it's a tenth. I'm not going to say it's a completely inferior product, but you're obviously not getting the R&D aspect of it, right? So build a profit. I mean, I look at Blind Man Overland again. I'll mention him again. His canopies are not cheap. Mm-hmm. They're, where all the other guys are, like Super Pacific or Alucab. He's in that same general area. But his canopies, you couldn't wreck those things with a bulldozer, but they're still fairly lightweight.
Yeah.
Where, like I say, is it twice the price of other ones? Yeah, it's maybe, $7,000 more. But it's something that if I have a family, I would feel much better knowing that is bolted on the back of my truck than something that came, something that was cheaply made or poorly made.
For sure.
So,
no.
But that's just me. I mean, there's just conflicting opinions, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's kind of like you said, right? Like you said, if you build a reputable brand, a good brand that you put all of your focus into and all of your handwork skills and all of your perfection into, people are going to remember your brand, just like the brands that you've worked with before that you brought up throughout this podcast. You remember their brand because they make a good, solid brand. They're leader, and that's why they're leaders in the industry, is because they make a solid product that is reputable and people will buy. And similar to your product, those companies are buying your product and your brand because they know you make a good custom interior brand, and they're going to support you while also supporting their own brand. So
correct.
If you make a good brand, the word of mouth is the best way to. If you have a good brand, the word of mouth is going to spread like wildfire.
Correct. Right.
That's where I'm at on that, and that's what you said is totally true. Last question: where can people find you? Like website, Instagram, social media.
Yep. So our website is fartsystems.com. We're on Instagram at fart_systems, and that's pretty much where you find us. That's kind of where we're at. Right? We're on Facebook as well, but we actually don't spend much time marketing on Facebook. I find Facebook is a very volatile platform, and, you get a lot of stupid comments on there. So,
I agree.
people are like, oh, Fahrt Systems, blah, blah, blah. Nobody likes a wet. It's like, okay, yeah, we've heard it all. It's great. Yeah, no, it's that's where you find us. And, we're just a 2-person team, but, we're keeping up with demand right now, but we'll see. We'll see.
That's awesome. Awesome.
Maybe we need a full-time marketing person. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, but no, it's honestly, Corson, this is like, I'll kind of do a walk and talk here while we're on here. But yeah, you can build here right now. So this is looking at it from the tailgate end.
Yep.
So this is for a Jeep Gladiator. So this is going inside of an alucab canopy on a Gladiator. But this gives you an idea of the actual weight of one of our systems. So that's one of the biggest concerns, right? Is you don't want to overweight a truck. So this is the complete system, and this is me with one hand.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's about 140 pounds.
That's nuts.
So I'm a stupid old goalie too, so I'm kind of strong. But
so basically, how you strap those in is it's that full wood. That's NM, or what's the wood? That's same as like what you use for a sub box. Yeah, same type of plywood.
No, this is actually plywood from Europe.
Okay.
So it's actually called Baltic birch. So it's what they build yachts out of. They build yachts out of it. So it's a marine-based plywood. So it's waterproof on the inside, and then we waterproof the outside. It's extremely lightweight. It only comes in 5 foot by 5 foot sheets rather than normal 4 by 8 sheets. So it's odd. It's a weird wood, but it's extremely lightweight. But in normal plywood, you have gaps and voids. Whereas if you look at this, there's nothing. I mean, there's a dark spot there, but that's just the wood. There's no gaps. There's no voids. It's incredibly lightweight, but its strength is unmatched. I mean, I'm about 6'1", about 230 pounds, and I can literally put a piece of 5/8 inch wood across between my workbenches, and I can jump on it and it won't break.
That's crazy. That's
nuts. So you see other guys there's a couple other guys starting to build custom systems and kind of take us on, right? We've already put one guy out of business, but he wasn't doing a very good job. But the reality is you have to use the right materials. I mean, I was talking about our 14,000 Newton rated anchors. Well, they're made in Germany.
Yeah.
We import those from Germany. We use nothing but the best. And that's where a lot of these other guys that are starting to do this are using cabinet grade birch plywood, which doesn't have the core like we have, right? Yeah. So they have to use 3/4 inch. We use 1/2 inch. Our build is lighter. So, but just the reliability of Baltic birch is unbelievable. You talk to any cabinet maker about Baltic birch and it's the holy grail.
Yeah.
Cabinets. Awesome. Yeah.
That's cool. And with that system, you pull that you have that big sheet on the bottom that sits on your box. You pull that sheet right out and everything comes with it.
No. So that sheet actually gets bolted into the box of the truck. So directly that becomes the base plate.
Okay.
So we use a triangulation bolting pattern because truck boxes flex, right? Yep. They don't get static. So we use a triangle bolting method so that the base plate actually flexes. Then the cabinetry is actually bolted in individual components to the truck, to the base plate, sorry.
Yeah.
So the cabinets and the base plate actually move with the motion of the truck bed, whereas some other guys, they use a 4-bolt system and they make it so static that it makes the truck bed more rigid, which ends up the cabinets fall apart over time. Nice. So we make everything movable or flexible.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's super cool.
But that's the engineering side of me, right? I mean, I really spent a lot of time, and that's something I don't talk about on many of the podcasts, but I've ran so many load calculations, flexibility calculations, and formulas through my engineering side that it's. I mean, you don't find a lot of BD guys that were actually engineers to begin with, right? So that's the difference. I think with me is I have the gift of the gab, but I can back it up. That's the thing, right? So that's when I speak to the clients, when I talk to them about triangulation bolting patterns and flexibility and why things are important, and talking about getting into off camber situations and having your weight low rather than up high, how you offset, how you counterbalance. People are like, holy shit, this guy actually knows what he's talking about, right? So
yeah, no, for sure. That's really cool. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Alan. That was great. It was I enjoy you speaking about all your expertise and knowledge in the industry, especially the safety side, because that's huge, and a lot of people might not know where to find it. But now I'll drop that in the description, and people can know where that is. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Carson.
No worries.